Obama, he's had a couple of very strong statements about the far left, and I think this is where the Democrats, the old guard Democrats, are starting to get very concerned that they'll end up with a candidate that will never, ever come close to beating Trump.
Well, it's fascinating because he's called out the kind of woke culture that we all joke about, and
considering he was the father of woke.
Exactly. But the fascinating thing, Peter, is it's very, very easy for politicians, political parties and businesses and individuals to just slip into this kind of slipstream of wokeness, and it's so easy for companies and politicians to say, oh no, I'm woke, I'm this, you know, and slide along down that path. But the voters aren't going with them. The Trump voters, the deplorables here in Australia, the quiet Australians in Britain, the leavers, etc., they're not going down that path. They have their values and they're sticking to their values. Trying to swim back against that tide, left-wing parties are finding it incredibly difficult. Once you've headed onto that woke path, it's very, very difficult to undo it. So Obama...
It's a very good point, because we're seeing that in Britain, aren't we? The Labor Party is trying to turn around and swim back against the anti-Semitism of
Labor Party
Corbyn.
here.
And in what's happening, that vote, they're not able to get through, and the vote is actually going across to the Lib Dems.
Exactly.
Well, that's sort of what the early polling's telling us. We'll see what's going to happen down the track. But also, too, strangely enough, some of that northern Labor vote, the old coal mining vote, is actually going to the Conservatives. And I watched a few people interviewed on the weekend who had these wonderful Yorkshire accents saying that, you know, my father would turn in his grave, but I am considering to vote Tory, but I have to vote Tory because we have to leave.
And that's the vote Farage is looking to pick up, and we'll see how well he does. But here in Australia, Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong, Tanya Plibersek, they've all headed down that route. They're now trying reviews and everything else to try and swim back against that tide, and they are incapable of even recognising how far away they've drifted from where mainstream Australia is.
Look, I must have been bored last night because I watched a little bit of Q&A, and I don't often...
You did that so that the rest of the nation did not have to, Peter. Well done.
I don't often watch some of that ABC programming. It's not good for my blood pressure. But there was a whole debate about climate change, as there always is. All the ills of the world. I mean, climate change has replaced Tony Abbott as the quick fix on every problem facing the country. But there was a bit of a protest and some more conversation. Well, I might play you a little bit. Let's have a listen.
Yeah, climate change is an existential threat to humanity and civilization, especially when we talk about people. You know, we've got, you know, the Torres Strait Islands are going to go underwater. The Pacific Islands are going to go underwater. These are existential threats to people around the world and here in Australia.
The next question is from Ryan Small. Ryan.
Thanks, Tony, for coming across to Western Australia. We really appreciate you coming over here.
Okay, that is not Ryan. You're not here asking a question. You've just jumped up, interrupting the questioner. So please, if you wouldn't mind, just sit down. Okay, there's no microphone on you, so no one can hear you. It's pointless. Okay. Okay. It's pointless. It's pointless. We can't hear you. There's no microphone. Okay.
What you couldn't hear there was Extinction Rebellion venting their spleen that even Q&A no longer is left enough for them. But it was such a lacklustre panel. I mean, that show used to be a really, you know, it would be a newsworthy show, and it was trying to have, I think, genuine debate, but it's lost that capacity. It just becomes the latest platform for causes of the left and a bit of humiliation of the poor one and single right-winger who's there on the show. He talked over a question, I think it was a really important question, from a young man who had bought a home, and because the way in which prices had fallen in WA, his mortgage was now in negative territory. So if he sold that home, he wouldn't get back what he paid for it. So he's battling a mortgage just to stay ahead, and the job insecurity. They're the issues we need our government to focus on, and energy and water.
And they're all related. And a lot, you know, the cost of energy has led to all sorts of problems with small businesses and homeowners, you know, and so on. So they don't have the money that they would have had otherwise. But watching that young man, and nothing wrong with that young man at all, but I would call it fraudulent. What they're actually teaching that boy is verging on intellectual abuse. Because the fact of the matter is the islands are not sinking. The satellite data from NASA shows the complete opposite, that those islands he's mentioned are actually growing in size. So someone involved in the education of that boy in WA is lying to that kid. That's the first thing. And Tony Jones should have said, no, you are wrong, your facts are wrong. But they didn't. They just run along with it. The only existential threat that is here is climate change alarmism, because climate change alarmism, Peter, is an existential threat to that boy's prosperity, to that boy's future job to the economy, to the well-being of him and his kids and his grandkids. And when he finds out in 10 years, or maybe sooner or maybe longer, when he finds out how comprehensively he has been lied to by the education system of Australia, WA in this case, he will be furious. The wasted years, the wasted energy, the scare campaigns, we are terrifying our children. That Greta Thunberg, you've got Prince Harry now wandering around saying, oh, Greta Thunberg's terrific. The misleading, the deception that is being played upon these children is borderline evil, what they are doing to these kids.
Yes, I have to say though, Rowan, the reality is that time is running out for that common sense to sink in, because this young cohort of people that have been bludgeoned on the issue of climate change are all about to vote if they're not voting already.
Absolutely.
And that's going to turn the tide.
Absolutely.
Rowan Dean, thanks for your time.
Thanks, Peter.